US President Joe Biden finally dropped out of the race for re-election, and despite praise now being heaped onto the 81-year-old by members of the Democratic Party establishment, the truth is, he will only be remembered in history for really one thing, and that is aiding and enabling the Gaza genocide. While being one of the architects of the infamous crime bill that targeted African Americans overwhelmingly, Joe Biden has presented himself as the most progressive US president ever, and an ally of people of color. His proof of this being the selection of Black Americans to new positions in office, which they hadn't previously held, which, by this standard, George Bush Jr. could have claimed the same due to him naming Colin Powell his Secretary of State, and then later Condoleezza Rice. Beyond his gaffes like introducing the president of Ukraine as Vladimir Putin or calling Kamala Harris Vice President Trump, amongst dozens of other embarrassing mix-ups that have called into question his ability to run for re-election, the history books will write his name next to that, truly, of Hind Rajab, the 6-year-old Palestinian girl who was shot 355 times while cowering in fear from invading Israeli tanks. He will be remembered for lying publicly about seeing confirmed images of Israeli babies beheaded by Palestinians, for his racially charged and ahistorical comments about Palestinians being motivated to launch the October 7 attack, being driven by ancient desires to wipe out the Jewish people. The blood of tens of thousands of Palestinian children and babies will stain the reputation of the one-term president who called himself a Zionist and endorsed an apartheid government and gave it unlimited military support in its clearly stated quest to manufacture a famine and enact a genocide on a civilian population that is composed roughly of 50% children. While university students revolted across the United States, launching encampments facing off against white nationalists, violent Zionist attackers, and police violence, Joe Biden contributed to whipping up hysteria that painted the students as anti-Semitic criminals, despite many of the students being Jewish. He ignored months and months of calls from the US public and the majority of the Democratic Party voter base to demand a ceasefire in Gaza, but rejected a peaceful resolution and allowed a famine to grip the population of Gaza. He watched on, continuing to supply Israel with the weapons it needed to put every hospital in Gaza out of service, to murder 500 plus medical professionals, kill more journalists than were murdered in all of World War II, and even when he called for a ceasefire, he refused to actually pressure Israel to accept it, instead opting to make excuses and greenlight more civilian massacres. Joe Biden dropped out of the race due to his deteriorating cognitive abilities, yet it is still clear that he is capable of some thought. While claiming to oppose racism, he whipped up fake hysteria, which led to the murder of Palestinian Americans in the United States by spreading false atrocity propaganda interwoven with Orientalist rhetoric. While claiming to care about diversity and to stand up for minority communities, he worked overtime to earn himself the nickname Genocide Joe.